what tends to happen, the more you are closer to the culture, the more you are closer to the understanding that ecosystem, you can actually craft something beautiful. You can talk to the people, you can resonate with what they are saying, you can understand what the kind of things they believe in, their ecosystem, what can actually nudge them. And that's how you start forming that relationship, not just with them at a transactional level, but also the mental mass within your brain. Whether boring or whether interesting, ultimately at the end of it, how can you speak the language of the consumer and how can you address one of his most pressing needs? More often than not, the challenges will be lying in the realm of whether this person is bought into the category, and if bought into the category, whether he or she is bought into your brand or not. So suddenly you don't see anyone who is there to sort of cheer you up, you pat up. Earlier there was someone whom you can lean on. There is no one to lean on right now. Whom do you lean on now? So that's where I felt, these were some of the observations about the category, and that's where I felt the insurance plays a role. I would like to believe that the trust becomes a very, very dominant player. And I have a feeling that this is not getting addressed enough. And this is precisely we have been trying to address in the campaign that we have done. Even if you look at our Insta handles or let's say YouTube channels, you will see a lot of real consumers who have gone through the experience of Tata AIG, them talking about this. I know they will not get that much amount of views. I know I might have to push that to get the views. It's possible. But then the point being that I want to take the face of the real consumer going on the road, or driving in the car, or let's say driving the railway somewhere and going into the railway somewhere, and I want him doing this talking. As a marketeer, we should be very, very cognizant of this fact that as long as we are honest to the consumers in terms of giving them what they want, right? Instead of just putting a point across that I am good at this, instead of that, we just start calling it out that, okay, I'm trying to appeal to them. I need to tell their story, not my story.
Hello and welcome to the HT Brand Leadership Series, a series of one-on-one interactions with top brand and marketing leaders who share the industry insights and strategies that have helped shape their stories. This series, hosted by Hindustan Times, offers a behind-the-scenes look at how leaders adjust their strategies for changing consumer behavior while leveraging media channels that improve customer relationships. Today, we are joined by Shekhar Sarab, a seasoned marketing leader at the helm of one of India's most trusted general insurance brands, Tata AIG. With a rich career spanning FMCG, consumer goods, and BFSI, Shekhar brings a sharp, insight-led approach to marketing, rooted in both human behavior and business outcomes. Under his leadership, Tata AIG has not only launched compelling brand campaigns, but also adopted marketing innovations that have redefined how insurance is communicated in India. Welcome, Shekhar, to this show. It's great to have you.
Thanks.
So, let me dive straight in. But before I do, I went through your LinkedIn profile. And one thing that struck clearly, it struck a chord with me. So, your journey spans India's two most prestigious institutions, IIT and IIM. A combination which is generally considered the holy grail. Tell me, was this path a chosen path, or did it just happen otherwise, like by default?
So a part of it was actually chosen one. And of course, some of the things just happened on the way. But very, very personal question, and I must credit you for that actually you dug that out, that information out. So for me, the way it happened, IIT was actually something that I did really prepare for. A lot of hard work went into it.
I'm sure.
And there was a lot of competitive examination, competitive environment, and a lot of grill that I actually went through it. A lot of grill basically. In case of IIM, the way it happens in case of IIT, that actually, of course, you sit on the placements, you try to go for foreign masters and PhD. And then at the same time, some people do try to make an attempt for MBA. So that's how it happens there. Actually, it's a lot of things happening simultaneously. Sometimes you are unable to figure out that what's happening, what's not happening, what's best for you. Then you meet your alums, or let's say who are doing great or good at the organization. Somehow I must give credit to IIT that they are actually very good at giving that kind of guidance, that what are you good at and what can you be good at, to identify your strengths and all. And that's where when I met my alums, I realized that why not, let's say, give an attempt to IIM. So, and I just pursued it, and happened to, I was fortunate with God's grace that I could crack IIM with a good percentile, and I got there.
Wonderful. But that's just not about the institutes, it's also about the courses that they offer, from engineering to management, right? So that was the pivot that you made. So how now, by heading marketing function with one of India's top insurance brands, how did marketing become your playground? Was it again by design?
So again, things happen like as you progress on the journey. So maybe I'll just break it a little bit. When you go into IAMS, typically in the first trimester, after first trimester, what tends to happen? Almost all the IAMS will go for their internship programs. Within 3 to 4 months, not that you are too much aware about the entire environment or entire ecosystem, that what's going to happen after 2 years of MBA, but just that when you are into it, then you have to identify and choose a certain career trajectory. There will be a lot of guys who will be, a lot of companies who will come on the campus. They will try to recruit you, they will try to talk to you, and they will try to convince you that why you should join us. For us at that point of time, I was into IIM Calcutta. Finance was something which is seen as one of the top things out there, and everyone would love to go to finance. And of course, you have two choices: either you want to go to finance, or you would want to typically keep one as a backup. For me, it was the other way around. So I wanted to join. Somehow it happened that I wanted to join FMCG, followed by finance. So that's the kind of ladder that I kept there. Fortunately, I got an internship with one of the firms, good firms, GSK Consumer Healthcare at that time. So all the all the FMCG guys are sitting parallelly at room after another, and they are meeting you. They have a hot list, you have a hot list, and where it gets married. So it's a very concise, strong process at IAMS, which sort of takes care of all of this. And then you get into a certain job profile, internship profile. So when I got into GSK Consumer Healthcare, so when I did the internship, it was a good experience for me. I felt that it's actually really, you are actually building something. It's not just about the money. It's about crafting something from scratch, giving it a shape, giving it a form, and then seeing it growing in front of you. Whereas finance was just about building money with money and investing in the right places. So you understand that. So yeah, so that's what actually struck me, and I realized that why not, let's say, pursue this as a career. And I got a PPO, and that's when the journey started.
Oh, interesting. But that's, gets me to the next one. So you spoke about Kharagpur, right? IIT?
Yeah.
And from there to Kolkata.
Yeah.
And GSK, I'm assuming, was Delhi.
Correct.
So 3 regions, and 3 different regions at that. So, as you stepped into that role of marketing, what role did the regions and the diversity of our country play in helping you draft out campaigns?
So a lot. I must say that. I mean, no one has asked me this query ever. Somehow you have picked this very beautifully. What tends to happen that I will just take a step back. Before that, I was into army school at Assam in Sainik Flag in East India. What tends to happen, the more you are closer to the culture, the more you are closer to the understanding that ecosystem, you can actually craft something beautiful. You can talk to the people, you can resonate with what they are saying, you can understand what the kind of things they believe in, their ecosystem, what can actually nudge them. And that's how you start forming that relationship, not just with them at a transactional level, but also the mental mass within your brain. And that does help you at a later stage somewhere, for sure.
So a follow-up to that, insurance, right? That's where you are right now. Now, fortunately, around, I don't know how to really tag it, but it seems it's not the most exciting category when it comes to marketing per se. But then it's like a blue ocean. It's not interesting. How do you really make it interesting, right? Becomes a challenge. But with Tata AIG, and that's what you've done wonderfully well, you've managed to bring a fresh, a very relatable voice in that space of so-called boring. What's been your approach to making the brand more human and high impact at the same time?
So for me, actually, everything starts from the consumer. So irrespective, in fact, you brought a very interesting point at the beginning that from an FMCG to an insurance kind of a trajectory. The good thing about marketing is it's all about consumers. It's not about any segment or a sector. Whether boring or whether interesting, ultimately at the end of it, how can you speak the language of the consumer? And how can you address one of its most pressing needs? More often than not, the challenges will be lying in the realm of whether this person is bought into the category, and if bought into the category, whether he or she is bought into your brand or not. So these are the two kind of step-by-step challenges that almost any marketer will face across the industry, like insurance, telecom, FMCG, banking, everywhere. That's how it will sort of lie. Now, the way I look at this category, it's a very, very heavy category if you ask me. Insurance, people look at insurance as a protection. It's not like just paying some money to some agent. Actually, if you ask me, he should be the most important person in your life, that company, that agent, because if something bad happens to you, that's what they fall to. When I was meeting the consumers, a couple of things they highlighted which sort of struck me very, very strongly. When you grow up, so when you were a 4-year-old, your someone was there to sort of say you that, okay, good job. So, or let's say when you were at a 7-year-old, your teacher was saying to you that, oh, great handwriting. Your father was saying, oh, beta, good job, you have run very well. When you were into class 8, class 9, good marks done, बहुत अच्छा किया तुमने 10 में, let's say you have got it even 60%. बेटा फर्स्ट डिवीजन से पास किया तुमने, तुम्हें आगे बहुत अच्छे पढ़ाई करनी है. 12th job, suddenly आपके पापा आपको appreciate करें, mama आई there, so everyone is there, just cheering you up. Suddenly when you are married, when you are into that zone of 30-35, suddenly what tends to happen that at that point of time, everyone suddenly starts to expect from you. Expectation, that sort of builds up. They start expecting from you. Till now, everyone was just appreciating you, cheering you up. But as an individual, you as a person, suddenly you have to deliver now to everyone. Now, you are not the one who is someone is coming and appreciating you. No, that's very, very remote. You are more on the acquisition side. If I have to put it little crudely, your wife will sort of keep on asking you that, or let's say challenging you that you are still not listening to me, you are your mother's. Your mother will say that you are your wife's. Your children will say that you are not doing enough for me. Their parents are taking me there, you are not taking me somewhere. Your boss say that you are not delivering. Your junior will say that you are not promoting me, you are not giving me increment. So you are screwed from all the sides, right? Versus let's say from an age, so suddenly you don't see anyone who is there to sort of cheer you up, you pat up. Earlier there was someone whom you can lean on. There is no one to lean on right now. Whom do you lean on now? So that's where I feel, that's where I felt, these were some of the observations about the category, and that's where I felt the insurance plays a role. It just, and that's the route which I took, and that's how I tried to bring into the campaign that I'm trying to tell him that, boss, you are good, you are great, you have been doing a good job till now. Here is something maybe if you use can make you even continue to become greater in your own journey. So that was the intent, and sort of appreciating what he has been doing, what has been happening in his life, and what he has been going through, and maybe he can do that job even better continuing with it. So that's how.
Oh, wonderful. But tell me something, you just mentioned in the beginning of this that insurance as a category has always played on fear. कल कुछ हो जाए तो क्या होगा, ये इस पे कुछ हो गया तो क्या होगा. Do you think as a marketer that fear psychosis really works?
What I have seen that the life players have predominantly played on that particular zone. Since our childhood we have seen the communications that जाने के बाद भी उन्होंने सब करके गए and we have seen multiple communication. So depending upon the kind of consumers you are, this is a very, very individualistic perspective coming from consumer background that I have had, that depending upon the kind of category maturity, you can have a certain kind of communication. So initially, let's say, life players would have taken that approach, but what I am saying that general insurance have gone a very, very comical kind of route. Most of them are trying to say that, have you saved this much amount of money? Or let's say, does your policy have this? My policy has that. They are taking more funny kind of a route. In case of general insurance, we have taken very, very different, like the way you just heard it, right? We have taken a very, very deep emotional route rather than saying that we are at a discount, we are taking this, you will get a certain benefit or certain discount. So we don't want to talk that kind of language. We want to.
Also now you've worked both with impulse-driven categories like consumer goods and also trust-driven sectors like insurance, right? That's the basic and the major differentiator. How has your lens on brand building evolved because of this over the years?
So in case of impulse, of course we marketeers have coined that term, but when we say impulse, the way consumers look at it, they look at it more like something which is called, let's say, convenience, or let's say ease of usage, convenience, something which solves certain problem right now, then and there. Within FMCG space itself, actually the convenience, or let's say impulse, is actually sort of maturing. A lot of impulse brands are actually maturing towards building that emotional connect. So it's no more or building that trust, because imagine, let's say when you were in 1990 or let's say 1980, when TV was not there, if you see any communication that would be coming in print, they will say that okay, 2 रुपए का साबुन है, 200 ग्राम 50% फ्री, आपकी त्वचा को नरम बनाए, something like that, right? Now things actually progressed from there. Now even this soap category, the personal care category, suddenly you will see that suddenly Dove came from somewhere and they started talking about real beauty, right? I mean, suddenly it evolved from where to where, right? Look at shampoo, look at chocolate. Suddenly a chocolate, instead of becoming just a sweetener, like the way Kiss Me, Parley Kiss Me used to be there earlier in our childhood times. Suddenly from there it became a moment of joy, celebration, or doing something bigger. So the brands are evolving. When the impulse category brands are evolving and suddenly talking in a certain way. The same way I feel the insurance, I mean that's where I want to believe, I would like to believe that the trust becomes a very, very dominant player. And I have a feeling that this is not getting addressed enough. And this is precisely we have been trying to address in the campaign that we have done. And that's an attempt that we are trying to make that. Let's know how do you sort of craft that trust, how do you build that emotional connect with the consumer by talking about their problems, their life, and how can they become a better hero. I am not the hero, you are the hero. You are a hero of your journey. I'm just there, a sidekick somewhere to support you in the best possible way that I can.
Interesting. As consumers get digitally savvy, right? They are today. They're also becoming a little more skeptical. Why? Because all of a sudden, yes. So being digital savvy is that yes, you sound intelligent, but what it also does, it opens up other thoughts for you, right? You start to process and say, okay, in this insurance category, they're talking about this. Does it really make sense? And they'll go read reviews. They do whatever. They try to take a sound, knowledgeable decision. So it works both ways. Now, how in this day and scenario, and in this with this as a thing, how can brands across sectors authenticate without sounding scripted in their campaigns? Because at the see, you need to, now what you're doing is trying to address a person, a consumer or a customer who is well read, he's done his research. So with all of that in mind, how do you still devise a campaign that has to come out to be natural? It cannot sound scripted. Is that a challenge, or does it come naturally to you?
That's something that one develops over a period of time. Maybe I'm still learning, but I'll try to take an attempt to that query. What tends to happen that, see, ultimately, the more as the time progressed, like let's say if you look at 90 versus 2000 versus 2010 versus 2020, the risk-taking ability of people have evolved a bit with little bit of information. As people have learned and grew, there used to be a time when, the Indian consumers in particular, they would just invest in gold. That used to be the currency. That so-and-so grandparents have kept so much of gold, maybe somewhere in the bottom of at some corner of home somewhere, that's for the next generation. It was not about currency, it was gold. Then suddenly it shifted to, this I was saying 1800, 1900, somewhere around that. Then it shifted to post-independence land plus gold, that kind of combination. Then suddenly it shifted to gold plus land plus some currency, some form, something here and there. So gradually, this is asset class. Now then again, the investment into asset class, initially everything was the money, just buy gold, keep it. Then it happened that why not, let's say, do FD, post office, when post office expanded and everything. Then came why not mutual fund? Then came a better, safer alternative, why not bonds, government bonds. So see, ultimately what's happening with information coming in, things are progressing. But as a consumer, do I not research about it? Of course, yes. But the thing is that it has to give me a consistent kind of information and consistent kind of experience across. So let's say if I feel that bond, if I have read that bond is safe and bond is secure, maybe better than FD, then what I as a consumer do, or let's say what I have done, actually is I have also been through that journey, that I saw last 10 years trend of bonds delivery. I saw that how safe they are. I saw the next 30 years delivery of bond yields and all, and I felt that this is good. I invested in that, and then I got a decent, reasonable ROI, better than banks. And like it's 100% said, because the government is giving you. So suddenly I felt that okay, this is good. I mean, if I have to give you an example from marketing space, or let's say FMCG space, like there are so many brands who are nowadays, let's talk about protein category for instance. Actually very, very interesting category. The entire category was built on the premise that maybe the food is not enough and you need some extra protein for your body. The category evolved into something like, let's say, like I have got the best protein, just use it. Like, some people got that when this information was building up, the category was building up, some players came and they built their brands. Then suddenly nowadays, if you see, new players are coming in and they are saying that this doesn't have XYZ extra ingredients. It has just got raw whey protein and that's it, full stuff, nothing, no nonsense, nothing. It's fresh out of there, and just use it. So that's how, and then like as a consumer, what you do, you look at the ingredient list. You look at, just do some little bit of research, you see the reviews, and you see that how authentic they are. And then, I mean, when at the multi-touch point level, when you sort of feel assured, then that's where it sort of hits that, okay, things are fine.
Right. So basically what you're saying is that everything that you do, any campaigns that start, everything is backed by data. So you've got insights, you've got everything. Now that you're trying to do and build as a campaign is build on those insights. Doesn't follow not necessarily a scripted show.
Like, not at all. Like, and that's what you will see. Like, as a organization, what we believe in, like we are not necessarily actually we are not at all an influencer driven kind of a, like, where we are going to tell influencers and paying them that, okay, tell good things about me. No. Even if you look at our Insta handles, or let's say YouTube channels, you will see a lot of real consumers who have gone through the experience of Tata AIG, them talking about this. I know they will not get that much amount of views. I know I might have to push that to get the views. It's possible. But then the point being that I want to take the face of the real consumer going on the road, or driving in the car, or let's say driving the railway somewhere and going into the railway somewhere, and I want him doing this talking. Not let's say some celeb saying that, okay, this insurance was good. Simply because exactly the point that you are making. Nowadays, everyone is smart and they can understand what's authentic and what's not.
Very true. You've seen both mass media-led brand building and performance-driven digital outreach. How do you decide the media mix in a world where attention spans are very fragmented and channels are abundant? We also spoke about how the attention spans are reducing. So from, as I was telling you and giving you that example, from my time of growing up where I had an hour to consume content now, and it used to still, get my attention, I had 15 seconds to capture, not even 15, in some cases maybe 7 seconds to capture an attention and then maybe go. So how do you manage that? How do you define how much time, effort, money, energy are you going to spend on mass media-led brand building, or is it going to be performance-driven digital outreach?
Let me make your question a little bit more complicated, difficult. So on an average, I mean, this was the data I was reading somewhere. On an average, a human brain in metro city, like people like me and you, get bombarded with the number was in some few thousands, like, some 11 or 12,000 kind of ads communication every day. I mean, that's the number which I heard. Like if you're going to office, coming back, outdoor, mobile, banner, YouTube, Instagram, Reels, if you are spending 2 hours on Instagram, I mean, it's almost few thousands of ads you sort of get bombarded depending on
from journey point A to point B?
From morning till evening. From morning till that point of, from waking up till sleeping. So the number was few thousands. So yes, the problem is very, very strong, and it's like it's one of the most relevant problems that we as a marketeer face. And one of the key which I have always felt that, like, what is one thing which will stop you from just looking away? I mean, that's where the game lies. I mean, that was true even in 1990s or 1995 or let's say 2000. That holds true even now. Anything like, right now we are seeing advertisement, but then in old days there used to be like, storytelling, nukkad show events and all. People used to gather there. Sometimes they used to watch, they used to go away. One thing which used to work was like, the thing that you are talking about or telling there, the story that you are telling with it, that's compelling enough or not. I mean, and more than compelling, exactly the things like, whether it's authentic, honest, true to them, relevant to them or not, whether you are able to connect with them emotionally or not. So those things I strongly feel even hold true right now. As a marketeer, we should be very, very cognizant of this fact that as long as we are honest to the consumers in terms of giving them what they want,
Right.
instead of just putting a point across that I am good at this, like instead of that, we just start calling it out that, okay, I'm trying to appeal to them. I need to tell their story, not my story. I mean, as long as you will be in the business of telling my story, like your own story, it's very likely that they will not listen.
But what you're talking about is any marketer's dream, right? To be given that kind of a free hand, to build that kind of a brand, to build that kind of a resonance. But today, unfortunately, the pressures of sales are so much that everything seems to be sales driven, which means that yes, marketing fine, but if you're going to spend $100, ensure that I get $300 worth. So which comes, and I come back to the question I originally asked. How do you differentiate? How do you ensure that the right kind of monies are spent on the right kind of stuff? Because whatever said and done, performance-driven digital outreach is as important as brand building. I firmly believe both go hand in hand, but today's day age and scenario where, as I said, sales pressures are immense, how do you ensure that the right amounts are spent on, say, brand building?
Okay, so let me put it one line here. I mean, this is my favorite line, which I sometimes tell my teams out there. A brand campaign is nothing but a performance campaign in long run. So we should not look at brand campaign as something that, of course, it's going to give you impact immediately, and that's where the role of the management comes into the play. Like, you need to be vocal out there. And just sort of have a certain kind of language talking and convince all the stakeholders out that, okay, there has to be certain agreement between you and the leadership that, okay, these are the few things that you should sort of change in the short term and something in the long term. Performance, of course, like rightly said, it goes hand in hand, and it does deliver, like, immediately, and then ultimately it's going to be a funnel. Even if I do a certain campaign right now in this particular month about a certain product, it's quite possible that out of the 70% of the audience that I have reached to, some 20% might be, or let's say 10% might be considering to buy insurance maybe next month. Out of that 10%, let's say if with the help of performance, I'm able to convert 1% or 2% out of them, that's a big deal for me. But the thing is that 70% to 10% has to be created, that 70% reach has to be created, or that they have to be converted into your category, and they have to be within that category converted to your brand. So that consideration and the term and the consideration has to be built. Unless you build that, the chances are that without this will just falter. Like, just going out and saying that, hey, 5% discount, 5% discount, 10% discount, XYG company will not work. I mean, you have to build that top and mid of the funnel so that the consumers they do trust out there. Otherwise, just 5%, it's not going to work.
I'm going to come back and circle back on this one because I have a follow. But before that, there's been a question which I've been wanting to ask. FMCG, when you look at FMCG as a category, what do you see? It thrives on very high decibel launches, right? And I mean, they really make a sound and light show out of that. While insurance, it's often, it's about confidence, it's about trust, and more often than not, it's very low profile, right? So how did you manage to kind of pivot from one high decibel to something which is a little more less in terms of being loud? And how do you manage what do you feel about these contrasting spaces? One being so high, the other being not so high.
So first of all, let me take a step back and let me talk a little bit about the categories. So FMCG, of course, like we know the way it operates and the way the GTMs are, the way the consumers do the shopping. Insurance, that way is very, very close to telecom as a sector. So telecom, like you would see that in our old days, like when we were a child, in a certain city, there will be some 25-30 guys who will have a certain shop, and those guys will sell 3-4, like Airtel, I mean that time Uninor maybe, Aircell, all those guys used to be there. And they will sell, or Reliance maybe. So they will sell all the 3-4 SIM cards, and you'll go and do the recharge. Imagine something similar is like, there's a setup of insurance. Like, in every city you will have some 30-40 brokers whom we call, and they sort of sell 3-4 products to the consumer. FMCG, that way, the GTM is like, you go to the retailer who keeps multiple brands, and he just doesn't sell. Consumers come and buy to them because he doesn't have an option. But in case of telecom and in case of insurance, you have that, I mean, the guy is selling just 3 or 4 brands, and he has an option to influence that, okay, which SIM card to buy, right? Here, let's say, so it's a different GTM. Now, coming back to your query, the thing that in FMCG, a launch happens certain way, of course, with a certain stature, with a certain bang. In case of this kind of category, what I have seen and what I have noticed that over the past 6-7 months, that a lot of fanfare or launches have happened keeping the agent ecosystem in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, consciously, this was done because that they are the ones who fall first and they are the closest to the consumer. Slowly and gradually, what has happened, I mean, and this we have seen in our growing years. In the past 5 years, if you see, 3 to 5 years, even within this industry, with so many new players coming in and them also advertising, I mean, without me giving their name, you would know. There are so many good players who are out there advertising, doing some good job out there. So now with them coming up, and they are now suddenly changing the landscape. And suddenly all of us, all the entire players, the entire ecosystem realize that, okay, now we have to come out. This part is done. Almost everyone have the agent ecosystem. Everyone has reached at a certain level. Of course, it can, if you push down there, it will give you 1%, 2% incremental delta. But then ultimately, it will come down to the power of brands. How do you create delta there so that it becomes easier even down there, and consumers come and buy from you directly. The way you look at Gen Z, the new guys who are coming, they are risk takers. I will ask my son 5 years down the line that how many times have you gone and bought from retail outlet? The answer will be no. He might be just ordering somewhere, it will just come to him. So they are willing to transact online. They are willing to take that risk versus us who have hardly taken any risk. I have my friends who have 100% money in share market, nothing in FD. So that's the kind of setup and things we are talking about. So of course, I strongly feel we are today right now at a point where FMCG used to be somewhere around in 1990s or 1995, where the distribution had almost was not a differentiator. You have reached at a certain scale. Now the power of brands started building, and how do you create the brands, how do you create that differentiation, distinction, and then similarly I feel in insurance segment as well, you have sort of reached that point and you have to build that brand. You don't have a choice, and hence you will see now that when some, I mean, I can quote multiple examples, but multiple players are now launching their products out there. They are putting their, there are metro stations out there in Mumbai who are just flooded with the brand name and their product out there. We have also done ourselves Tata AIG Medicare. We have done multiple communications for the consumer, not just for the agents, but for the consumers. It's live on TV right now as we speak. Pulling back from there, now that all the organizations, or let's say all the insurance companies, have now done a fair bit for the insurance for all the launches. Now what we can see in this category, that almost all the players out there, not just one, I don't want to point to any singular one, but you can just look out for yourself, in the metros or let's say in the outdoors. Nowadays, whenever any kind of any new launches happen, you will just see out there that a lot of noise is being made.
Right.
Getting registered or not is a separate thing. That's again, like I said, the thousands of communication getting bombarded to the consumers every day in and out from morning till evening. But the point is that they are making an attempt. We have also made our own humble attempt at Tata AIG Medicare Select, a new product which we have launched, which has the facility of customization. You can customize your insurance, you can make your own pack. Imagine something like, let's say, the Vodafone Red, or let's say Airtel Black used to do in the postpaid time. You can customize your packs and all. So something like that we have made an attempt, and we are on air, on live right now, on TV, on digital, on social media with this campaign, and we are trying to make an attempt. So let's see how does it go.
I'm sure it'll go well. But as we end the show and come towards the end, there's one question that I would want to ask you. Two parts to this question though. We live in a world of social media where nothing seems to be hidden from people, right? But I'm sure there'll be some. I would want to know what's that something that's the true Shekhar which social media doesn't talk about. Part one. Part two, I in the beginning of the show spoke about the Holy Grail, which is that deadly combination of an IIT and an IIM, right? By default, when I said the Holy Grail is because a lot of people or upcoming students try to follow that, emulate. What's that piece of advice that you would want to leave behind for people who are following you, want to follow your footsteps?
I will start with the second one maybe, yeah, and then maybe end with the first one. In case of to all, whenever I go to college or whenever I meet any student, this is something that I keep telling them. Always stay in touch with some set of people who you feel can guide you. Trust me, nothing can beat that, and that goes a long way.
You become the mentors.
you call them mentor, you call them buddy, you call them big brother, godfather, whomever, whatever you want to call them. But actually, it's so needed in today's world, and it's very relevant. More so in country like ours, where the middle population, there's a huge amount of competition. Even if you sit for IIT or let's say sit for IIM, there are, or even for a bank period. Right now, just now I heard that there was some, some retail chain for which there was a chowkidar opening or something like that, for which there were a lot of interviews happening. I'm just saying, the point being that there's a huge amount of competition. So one, you need to figure out that, okay, which direction to take. And second, what are the things you need to do to arrive at that direction? And third, also, it should sort of lie with your likings. Like, it cannot be like, all said and done, all of us at least try to make a conscious attempt to do things which we like. We may not end there, but at least we try to make an attempt. And then we see that whether it's sort of marriage or not. So, and in all of this, one thing I have seen has always helped me, the guidance of seniors, the guidance of some people who sort of always mentor you and tell you that, okay, this is what I feel you are good at, and this is what it's looking like. I've seen you growing up. Maybe you are good at maths, you are good. I've seen you solve math problems very analytically, very nicely. And then maybe you can make career in this direction. Have a weightage of that in your brain whenever you are doing your own mental maths of where do you want to arrive. It's very simple thing, but it goes a long way.
So if I were to sum it up, you're saying that have a mentor, people you can look up to, people you can talk to for guidance, be relevant, right? Recognize your strengths and work on your weaknesses. If you were to package that in a way, is what you're trying to say?
Yeah. And the third point, which I felt is actually very critical, that always have that third party perception even about your strength, your weaknesses, not just what you feel is right. It's good to have someone tell you and continuously, look, I feel that this is what you're good at. I feel that this is not what you're good at. And it will be really good if that person is not necessarily in your line. If it's a third person, nothing can beat that. Because suddenly you'll never ever feel offended from what he's saying. Suddenly you will be sort of open to him. I'll just give you my example. I speak to some people within arts, arts stream, they are into politics and all. Actually, they are into the political ecosystem and literature. Suddenly, whenever in some tea party, or let's say whenever I go to meet their children, somebody, whenever we have conversation, they have always told me consistently that you have a very different approach of thinking. That's their way of saying it. Now, different approach of thinking, that could mean many things. Am I solving the maths differently? There is just one way. Am I creative? Maybe no. It could be both. It's you have to figure that out. That's what that's what they are deciphering, and it's very day-to-day routines and day-to-day things. It's up to you now. How do you decide? If you keep on going just basis your head, you are already muddled with so many things. Just so many things in day-to-day routine from your the entire surround, the ecosystem, the one that you are into. It's good to have a different perspective and different lens judging you.
Yeah, so true. And the second part of that question, I'm still waiting an answer for, who's the real shaker, which social media doesn't talk about.
Yeah, so one, I'm fairly out there, but yeah, this is one thing which I don't talk much about on social media at all, is I like to meditate a lot. That's one thing for sure, which is out there, which I do, and anyone who knows me very closely would know that. I like to meditate a little bit away from. I try to spend some time, maybe a few minutes only every day and every evening, every night only. But I do spend some time just sitting somewhere idly and taking the name of the Lord. So that's something that I do.
Yeah, spirituality really helps, and keeps us sane. Thank you so much, Shekhar, on that spiritual note. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks, Aman.
Your journey across insurance and consumer goods underscores the power of agility, empathy, and relevance in marketing today. To our viewers, stay tuned for more such conversations in the HT Brand Leadership Series, where strategy meets storytelling. This is Aman Kanjhlia signing off.